Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the unsolved murder of BBC presenter Jill Dando. I'd just like to let you know, I mean no disrespect to anyone I'm going to talk about, I've gathered this information off the internet and compiled it into a video for educational purposes. Jill Dando was born on the 9th of November in 1961 in Weston-super-Mare, Somerset in England. Her parents were called Jack and Winifred, and she also had an older brother called Nigel. When Jill was just 3 years old, her parents would actually find out that she had this hole in her heart, this condition that blocked her pulmonary artery, and it would result in her needing heart surgery, which she did get, and it was successful, and she recovered really well from it. Jill went on to study journalism in the South Glamorgan Institute of Higher Education in Cardiff. Jill then got her first job as a trainee reporter for a local newspaper, but she eventually did get a job in the BBC. Over the next few years, her career really soared. And in 1988, she went from regional news presenter to national news presenter. And Jill did really well in it. She presented all these different shows, including things like BBC News Breakfast Time. In 1994, she landed the job in which she was probably most known for, which was a British TV show called Crime Watch. This show is a very popular show in the UK, and it's put out there to raise awareness of like these certain crimes in the hopes that they will get solved, in the hopes that the public may have information they didn't know about. They can obviously send it into the show, it can be passed on to the authorities, and some of these crimes can be solved, and some of them were. Jill moved to Fulham, and at this point she was in a relationship with Bob Wheaton, who was a BBC executive. However, their 7-year relationship actually ended in 1996. Then in 1997, whilst obviously still working for the BBC, she met a man on a blind date called Alan Farthing. Alan was a gynecologist, and when they first met he was going through a divorce. But by all accounts, him and Jill hit it off. They were very happy together, and not long after their divorce was actually finalised, on the 31st of January in 1999, the couple got engaged. They set their wedding for the 25th of September, and they were so excited about it. They were so looking forward to it. Everything seemed to be going really fantastic for Jill. She had this booming career. She'd been given awards like BBC Personality of the Year in '97. She really had this connection with her viewers and the public. And she'd found love again, and obviously they were so excited for their future together. However, on the morning of the 26th of April in 1999, Jill left Alan's home that morning. By all accounts, Jill spent most of the time living at Alan's home. She had a home in Fulham, but she wouldn't really often go there at all because most of the time was spent with Alan. Now, she would only go to a house in Fulham for maintenance, so I don't know, things like watering plants, getting the mail, just little things like that. She didn't go very often. This morning she was on her way up to that house, and from what I could find, they were actually planning on selling this house. If she lived pretty much full time with her fiance anyway, it does make sense to obviously just have the one house and get rid of the other one, which by all accounts that was their plan. So this morning she returned to Fulham. She had this wedding dress fitting later on planned, and she was due to present the 6 o'clock news on the BBC. At 11:32 a.m, Jill walks up her pathway towards the front door, but she never made it inside because a person grabbed her from behind with the right hand, pushed her to the ground, and her face was pretty much touching the step of a door, which just goes to show how close she actually got. With their other free hand, they took a 9mm semi-automatic pistol and shot her through the left side of the temple just above her ear. The bullet actually came out of the other side. Jill was dead on scene. No one actually heard the gunshot, and it would take some 40 minutes before anyone would even find Jill. She was found by her neighbour, Helen Dobell. Helen immediately called the police, and I don't think initially she actually thought she'd been shot. No one heard the gunshot, no one heard anything. There was that much blood sort of down the path that she believed that Jill had been stabbed. Jill was taken to Charing Cross Hospital, where she was declared as dead a little after 1 p.m. Police believe that she was instantly killed by the gunshot. The strange thing about this was the time and where it was. So it was in London, and it was around dinner time, so there would have been many people around. There would have been so many people around. Nobody heard the gunshot. Nobody saw anything. No, it was just very strange. Police obviously conducted this huge investigation. She was very much in the public eye. She was quite famous, really. A lot of people knew her, and it sparked this huge investigation. This investigation would eventually be called Operation Oxborough. And one neighbour did come forward to say that they had heard this scream on that morning. They looked out the window. It didn't sound like a scream of fear. It sounded more like a scream of kind of someone excited to see the friend. Say you've not seen your friend in a while. Some women would just scream when they saw her because they were excited. That's what it sounded like to this neighbour, and they did actually look out the window, but they didn't see anything. A tree in Jill's front yard, to give her some privacy, I guess, must have been blocking the view of a body, because when they looked out, they didn't see anybody. They only saw this man that was running away from the scene. He was described as a 6-foot male, around 40 years old, and as I said, he was running away from the scene. This neighbour, didn't see anything else. So they didn't really think that much of it. The reason it was later discovered why nobody heard the gunshot was because the gun was so close to her head that her head actually muffled the sound of it, which is horrific to even think about. Horrific. Also, the shell casing was found, and it was found that it had been tampered with. Something along the lines that they'd removed something in it that allowed it to be quieter. So that was also a reason as to why it wasn't heard. The big question on everyone's mind was, why would somebody want to kill Jill Dando? Jill's case was obviously covered all over the media. She was one of their own, and she was a household name, and people wanted answers. They looked into the usual suspects: jealous boyfriend, jealous lover, family, any friends or any family conflicts that could have had something against her, but there was nothing, and that kind of side of it was ruled out quickly. Obviously, with cases like this, they do generally go to the family members and the people closest to them first, because a lot of the time it's them, unfortunately. But as I said, they ruled this out because she was such a well-known public figure. They went along the lines of maybe a stalker, somebody who had seen her on all these magazines or on the TV or everything that she was on, maybe became obsessed with her, and then obviously murdered her. Leading up to the murder, Jill had apparently been concerned about a few people. When people looked into this kind of aspect of it, they found that 150 people had a very unhealthy interest in Jill, which is just really frightening to say the least. They did look into them all of them, but they didn't really find any evidence to support any of those actually murdering her. They looked into cases that she had covered on Crime Watch. Maybe this was a case that had been solved by possibly her sort of participation in Crime Watch, and there was a grudge against her. But they looked into all those, and none of those came out with a link either. Another theory was that it was a hired hit. Of course, the police looked into all of these, but they were just no closer to finding out who had done it. And a year later, there were still no answers. There was no information that seemed to be coming in that was any relation to the case. Despite police interviewing over 2,500 people and getting over 1,000 statements, they just didn't get any closer to who had committed this crime. Then police began looking at old tips and things that they'd got in. And that was when they came across a man called Barry George. He was 39-year-old at the time, and he lived around half a mile from Jill. He also had a history with the police, for such things as sexual advances, stalking women, and just generally attention-seeking behaviour. He would impersonate other people, and he did actually work for the BBC for a stint. It was only a short stint, mind, I believe it was about 5 months. He worked as a messenger, but after it had ended, he still went up every week to get the weekly staff magazine, which is a bit odd. Like he couldn't really let go of it, I guess. Of course, it is suspicious behaviour, but the main thing that kind of caught the police's attention with regards to Barry was that he was this gun enthusiast, and that he'd previously trained with the Territorial Army. Police put Barry under surveillance, and after all of this, they decided that it was enough to arrest him on the 25th of May in 2000. They searched his house, they found all these magazines and things, and a lot of the magazines had Jill's photo in it, on the front cover and things like that, ones that she'd starred in. They also found all these undeveloped photos. Now, all of these photos, they went and got developed, and they were of so many women he'd taken a photograph of, and they didn't know he'd taken a photograph of them. There were actually 2,000 of these, along with maps to women's homes. They concluded that Barry was stalking a total of 400 women at least, which is just insane. I don't know how anybody has the time to stalk 400 women. Oh, it's just crazy. The police also found a picture of him in his house holding a semi-automatic gun, which they believed could have potentially been the gun that was used to kill Jill Dando. The final piece of crucial evidence that they found was this coat. Now, this coat matched the description of the coat the man was wearing that neighbour had seen running away from the scene. They sent this coat off for testing, and it came back that in one of the pockets there was this microscopic particle of gunshot residue, and it matched the gunshot residue at the crime scene of Jill Dando, and that was enough for the police to charge Barry with Jill's murder. Now, let me just say that this gunshot residue was minuscule. It was the tiniest little particle like ever. It was so small. So during the trial, Barry pleaded not guilty, but he was found guilty by trial, and he was convicted of Jill's murder on the 2nd of July in 2000. And he was sentenced to life in prison. There were so many people that was very skeptical of Barry's conviction. They really didn't have a lot of evidence against him. It was mainly this particle, which was the physical evidence. The rest was all circumstantial. And sort of if you remove that particle, which bearing in mind was minuscule, then they didn't really have anything else against him. Barry, however, appealed his sentences. And on the 3rd appeal, it was actually accepted. And he was granted a retrial in 2008. During the second hearing, it would be stated that this minuscule gunshot residue was deemed so inconsequential that it was not actually admissible as evidence. Because as I said, it was just so small. And because it was found in this coat, there could have been so many reasons as to why it was there, how it had gotten there. So now, with that being thrown out, they literally didn't have a case against Barry. All it was circumstantial evidence, and he was actually acquitted and released. Barry had a very low IQ by all accounts. And many people argued that because of this, he would have not had the intelligence to carry out this attack on Jill. The person that attacked Jill attacked her in an area she would normally not be in. In broad daylight, they left no physical evidence at all, no DNA, no nothing. They must have been quite organised to have done something like that and not leave anything behind. And so because of that reason, people believe that Barry couldn't possibly have killed Jill. So this kind of left police back at square one, still not knowing who killed Jill Dando. So that's all the information we have on Jill Dando's murder, and obviously there are so many theories sort of surrounding it, so I'm going to take you through a few of them now. One theory is that it was a hired hitman, that somebody who had basically been convicted of a crime because of Jill's presenting of Crime Watch, and that they'd hired somebody to murder her due to that. But as I said, it was looked into and they couldn't find any links. That's not to say it's not true, and that's not to say that it is true. Just a theory. Another theory is that a Bosnian, Serb or Yugoslavian groups killed Jill because she made these many appeals during the Yugoslavian war, or that it was retaliation to NATO actions against the media, and that's why she was murdered. Some people think that it just could have been a crazy fan that maybe killed Jill due to her rejecting their advances. Another theory is that Jill was killed because she had knowledge of a child sexual exploitation ring. In these claims, she reported this to BBC management, was killed as relation to that, to obviously keep her quiet about it. This was something the BBC stated that they have not seen any evidence to indicate that, but obviously we now know that the BBC was kind of involved in child ring scandal with Jimmy Savile. I'm not saying that of course Jill had information on this because we just don't know, but it is a theory that people believe. Most theories surrounding a case are basically revolving around her being assassinated. Now, of course, we don't know what happened to Jill, and to this day it still remains unsolved. Personally, I don't really know what to believe myself. It would seem more likely to have a hit having done the job, but obviously I have nothing to go towards that. It's just more what I would be inclined to lean towards, I guess, out of all those theories, but I just don't know. Nobody does. What do you guys think actually happened to Jill Dando? I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories. Do you think any of the theories that I've mentioned plausible? Do you think that it's a different kind of theory? Just let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear them all because, as I said, I don't really know what to believe. But this case was obviously so sad. They all are so sad. Jill's life was going really well. She had this fantastic career. She had found love again. They were going to get married and start their life together. And her life was just stolen, and nobody still knows why to this day. My heart truly goes out to her family and friends and all those involved in Jill's murder, and the grief for her, even her fans, her public, just everyone that was impacted by Jill Dando's murder. And I really do hope that one day this case is solved for her family and friends. They deserve to know the truth and to seek justice for her death. So yeah, that's the end of the case. If you guys have any suggestions, please let me know. I'll look into them for you. Give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed this video and like similar content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Jill Dando. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!